Welcome, welcome, welcome. Another Discourse Friday. I was going to talk about patriotism, but then New York flooded. Arizona's on fire, and so much environmental disasters. The ocean's on fire. Um, the ocean's on fire. You know, it's hotter than ever. This is like the hottest year on record. When are we going to start taking environmentalism seriously? And I think the hard thing is too is like, oh, the jobs. What good are jobs when you're dead? When you can't live where you live, where you can't eat, where you can't survive, you can't breathe the air, you know? And it's all relative in a way too, because we're here in the United States, and not for nothing, we have it even within the states. Like originally, I'm from New York City, and whew, that air there is horrendous. But when I go out to like Wyoming, the air is so fresh and so clean. But for how much longer? Because they're gonna keep pumping gas and oil and all this other fracking and all this stuff. They're damaging the environment from within. You know, because it's not like you could just damage and toss away one area. It's all connected. It all affects one another. Like, why don't we ever like look at the mountains, right? The mountains that they like level for like lithium, which power our phones and batteries. Should we even allow one-time use batteries anymore? Should all batteries just be rechargeable since we have the technology? But it's not profitable, right? Come on. Like, there's no point in having toss-away batteries anymore. Like, good for 2 hours, 3 hours, 8 hours. No. Like, look at all cameras nowadays. Cameras are rechargeable, right? Or plugins and stuff like that. And it's also linked into a way, too, because when you plug something in, you're powering to the grid, which is powered, again, by fossil fuels. So you're not really being environmentally friendly, you know? You're charging your electric car with fossil fuels. Think about that. Like, where is this electricity coming from? And we have the space and the technology to do wind and solar and all this other stuff. However, a big issue with them is the battery. They can't store power enough, and they can't charge power fast enough in a lot of respects to the level of demand that we've created. So what should we do? Should we reduce our demand, you know? Reduce what we use and need, you know? Go back to candles. We'll see an increase in fires because people are idiots. Or just careless. How can we care so little about the environment and the world that we live in? It astounds me and baffles me. But I also get it. It's all about the money, you know? How can you make environmentalism profitable? And then I report back, like, have you ever gone to like a national park? It's expensive, you know? The hiking stuff, the backpacks, the boots, the tents, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, water bottles or water bladders and stuff like that, hydro flask, the cars, Range Rovers and Jeeps to maneuver these landscapes safely. It is expensive. It's not easy. But then we have the flood mitigation. And I saw a video, that's why I started this late today. I was watching this video of this two guys in the Bronx. There was like 157th Street. The road was flooded, right? You see cars like acting like boats. And what they were doing is they were digging all the garbage out of the sewer, like the little drains, because they got so filled with garbage it clogged, and that's what caused it to flood. And you see them digging and getting their hands in there and tossing the garbage out and tossing it aside. And granted, tossing it in the water was going to flow back in there anyway. And then within a few like minutes or whatever, the flood is gone in that one area because it cleared the drain. Which leads us into another topic of infrastructure. We have the capabilities to adapt and adjust our environment, right? Like currently, I'm in Arizona in the middle of a desert in an air conditioned house because it was built this way, right? We took the power lines and took everything and stretched it all the way these miles to this middle of nowhere where I'm at. So if we can adapt the environment to better suit our needs, we can better adapt our infrastructure to withstand the chaos that we're ensuing. You know, we shouldn't progress this chaos. We should definitely aim to combat global warming and climate change and all this other stuff because we're wrecking it with all the input that we're putting into the world. But in the immediate, we can adjust. And you know what that tells me? Jobs. You know? Creepy Joe Biden whisper. But there's jobs in it. Like adjusting environmental disasters, like that's a whole freaking department. You know what I mean? Like FEMA and all this other stuff, the training, the life-saving EMTs and medics and all that stuff that we have to sacrifice to save after the chaos happened. We could do so much more in preventative and teach and construct a better way, you know? Like I think here in Arizona, I think it was in Tucson, I think they just passed a bill that all new houses have to be built with like charge ports for electric vehicles, right? Like Teslas and etc. Because I'm assuming they use the same things. Why are they doing that? Why did they make that into a law for coding for new buildings and stuff? Well, if you build a new building from scratch, as often happens, to install that charge port that charges electric vehicles, about $200. If you have a house that's already built and it doesn't have one, and you want to put one in there, well over $1,000 to do so, because you have to adjust the grid and the systems and the connectors and all that other stuff. It's very expensive and time consuming. But if you do it when you build it, it's cheap and it's sustainable, you know? Like we have to start looking at things in sustainability, you know? Like we don't need to be buying a million shirts and things like that. Like for me, like freaking Selena, like I went to the Selena store and bought a shirt there, you know? When I'm a huge into wrestling, I support wrestlers that I enjoy, so I'll buy their merch and stuff like that, you know, simple things. But I don't need to go and buy freaking Gucci or whatever, you know? But that's me, again, because my taste. That's not knocking anyone who likes all that fashion stuff. But do we need stuff every year, every month, every little thing? It's not sustainable, because even like look at the water that's wasted, not for people to drink, but to make cotton, you know, to make these fabrics. The technology being wasted on creating gaming systems are eradicating our our minerals that we're taking from the earth, and now those same minerals are used in cars. Now we can't make cars. Like it's never just one thing. It's all so interconnected, and the more you can start seeing it that way, and the more we can start seeing it that way, I should say, the more at peace, the more of an understanding we can gather, you know? Because the environment, you know, we only got one Earth. Like we got 2 robots on Mars, you know, big whoop. No oxygen up there, you know? The fact that we have people living in outer space in the International Space Station is impressive, but it's not sustainable, you know? So what are we going to do? Are we going to go cross-planetary? Or can we just fix and save the planet we have? Because we only got the one, you know? Like, they're like, oh, we found another Earth, a million, billion light years away. Cool, we can't even get a human to Mars. How are we going to get out there? Like, let's be real. You know? And we keep killing ourselves and allowing diseases to run rampant and stuff like that, allowing construction to fall apart. Because things are going to fall apart. Nature doesn't stop. We have to adapt with it. And if we don't, happy Earth Day. Because the Earth's going to be fine. We're not. We're not going to be here. And like, All the comments on generational differences, like, oh, my generation was tough. Your generation killed this planet. Let's be honest. Like, you guys dropped atomic bombs left and right. You guys drilled for oil and wasted it and jacked the prices up. So by the time we're using it, we can't afford it. Create these business and industries and enforce capitalism on us all. Yet, it's not sustainable because we all can't be billionaires, right? So what does it take just to be happy, to be safe, to live sustainable? Because the way we're living, it's a crash course. And it sucks too, because then, like, I've worked for years, like, with environmental organizations and the National Park Service, stuff like that. Those jobs don't pay, you know? But there's passion there. There's a care. How do we put our value in the careers that matter, right? Because we saw it happen with essential workers. Those essential workers at McDonald's or the grocery store making $7 an hour, $8 an hour, saved their lives during the pandemic. Those stockbrokers making six figures went on vacation for a year. How do we put value in what's necessary, you know? And it's not a new trend too. Like, if you look at historically, like, you had the kings and queens and princes and lords and all this stuff who just sat on their ass. It was the farmers who grew the food. It was the stonemasons who built the castles, you know? They're the ones who were essential. Because it collected all that tax money and just let it go to shit. How can we be better? How can we live sustainably? How can we better adapt? We got to hold these companies accountable. You know, no amount of plastic straws is going to change the fire hole in the ocean because of a gas leak. We have to move better. We have to change and start new businesses and start new waves of economics, you know? Make it more humane, because we're not robots. We build robots. Take care of Mother Earth. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself.